Recording in progress.
Okay. All right. We're going to call to order tonight the August 2nd meeting of the Design Review Board. So we've called to order here at 6 o'clock. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Like to introduce staff, I guess. Is Bob coming? Okay. Like to introduce staff and the board.
Robin McDonald, zoning manager.
Casey Robinson, Bethany Creek Road.
Doug Haney, Bethany Way.
Reed Casey, Bethany Road.
Charlie Roberts, Freemanville Road.
Ken Warlick, Hipworth Road.
Lee Collins, Westbrook Road.
All right. Next, like to get approval or any amendments to the agenda for tonight.
No.
Any discussion on the agenda? Any changes? Can I get a motion?
A motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's approved, or the agenda is approved. Next, we'd like to get approval of last month's meeting minutes of the July 12th Design Review Board meeting. Any discussion, alterations, additions?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the July 12th Design Review Board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, with that done, we're going to get into our cases this evening. And the first is Demolition Structures. And our first case is 5A, 2000 Birmingham Road, Jackson Farms. Would the applicant come up? Yes, sir. Go ahead and tell us what you're doing.
So we want to demo the structure at 2000 Birmingham Road. It's a single-story brick and block building.
Okay. Any opposition to this, Robin?
I do not have any opposition.
All right. Is that all you want to say tonight? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and open the discussion for the board. Let's make a motion.
I'll motion to approve demolition of 5A 2000 Birmingham Road.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who was the second? You guys are going quick.
I'll second.
Lee seconded. Doug made the motion. Lee seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good luck. Tear down anything old and dirty. Next item on the agenda is 5B, 16280 Hopewell Road. It's a demolition also. Is the applicant here?
Good afternoon.
It's your turn.
Okay, my name is Eli Grobler. So applying for the demolition of an existing house structure and the existing barn structure at 16280 Hopewell Road. I'm the owner of the property.
Okay. Robin, any opposition to this?
We do not.
Hearing none, I will close the public hearing
You're sitting here.
and ask for the board's discussion or motions.
No
You
discussion.
guys are bashful tonight. Let's get a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve the demolition of 16280 Hopewell Road, 5B.
Get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good luck.
Let's see who they are.
Okay. Now we're going to get into courtesy reviews. This board recommends and sends our recommendations to the BZA. We don't actually vote. We just recommend. Those recommendations are sent forward to BZA, who reviews them and takes them into consideration. So our first case is 6A, 360 Gunston Hall Circle. Is the applicant here?
Good evening. My name is Nick Fuller. I am the homeowner at 360 Gunston Hall Circle, and we are seeking a variance to increase the lot coverage to 24.2%, as well as the rear 50-foot, or we're trying to increase it to 50-foot rear setback. Because the main purpose of this is when we purchased the home about 4 years ago, the deck was already in place. It was one of the main selling points of the home. And we came to find out that it was set back too far on the property line. We haven't made any other additions to the property since we purchased it. The lot coverage right now, as it currently stands, is 24.9. So we'd be actually taking out a lot of concrete walkways that are around the house that are actually very pretty, but we would be taking them down to allow for a pool to be put into the back. So we'd be taking out exactly 943 square foot of impervious structures, and then adding in 713. Also, we would add in flow wells into the back, 4 flow wells, to increase the water quality. So we'd pipe in our drainage systems coming off the roof, and any drainage in the back property area. We've been working with the planning board and everything on this to make sure that everything is up to spec with stuff like that.
Okay. Robin, any opposition here tonight?
We do not have any opposition.
All right. Hearing no opposition, we'll close the public hearing. This is pretty extensive, and the whole pool is in this buffer. My question is, could it be done at the other end of the house where there's a lot of land? Again, this isn't a 5 or a 10-foot encroachment. This is entirely in this buffer. Ken, what's your thought?
I guess my question is, can staff update us a little bit on why this was deferred by the ZBA?
Robin? Ken has a question.
Sorry.
Okay.
My question was, is can you update us on as to why this was deferred by the ZBA back to the DRB?
Cover the second variance for the deck.
Yes, we
Okay.
had to re-advertise to include the deck variance.
Okay.
So had this been approved once before for the, I mean, first off, I'll say, I'm appreciative of what changes you're making to the coverage to make sure that you're reducing before you add. That's great. I guess similar to what Charlie said, the entirety of it being in the setback, the pool area anyway, seems to be an issue. Was that approved before?
No, there has been no approval for the variance thus far. The reason we would love to put it in that side area, but our septic runs over there. So we can't put it in that area is the main cause for that.
Robin, do we know about who are the neighbor sign-offs? Are they the absolute adjacents on, and I was confused about a 30-foot right-of-way right behind your pool. What's the 30-foot right-of-way?
Oh, there's this.
You're talking about the one behind where there's Old Holly Road, I believe is what it was, that kind of,
Just looking at your survey.
yeah,
And
there's,
it calls for a 30-foot right-of-way as if there's a road there.
yes, there was an abandoned road. Not me, but Penn Hodge, who's my neighbor to the back, who had sign off as well. He had seeked an abandonment of the road because it's an old road it's no longer a road. It's a bunch of stuff growing all over it. But they never could get everyone to sign off on it. So that's what that is, Old Holly Road.
It is a county road.
It is. And I believe you guys have plans at some point to put a trail there. I looked up you guys' plans for everything. It looked like there was going to be a trail going back. I will tell you, I will have a fence that's put in. Currently, there's no fence there. So they would also help increase security after you guys put a trail there.
I'm really against, 5 feet, 10 feet hardships, we're good with. But the whole buffer, your pool going in a buffer.
There is no.
Is this a
Yeah, there's-
buffer or is this just
Yeah,
a coverage?
I'm sorry, let me change what I said. In this setback,
That's not-
but I lean your way a little bit with a 30-foot right-of-way there. So that's a road now, maybe it goes away, but
But it's not a setback issue. is it?
The pool's
So
allowed.
Really, what they're here for tonight,
I can't hear you.
what he's here for tonight is to legalize the existing wood deck, which you can see is existing, and it does encroach into the setback. He's here because there's 1 foot, a little corner of the house that's also in that setback. And he's here for lot coverage, a relief on lot coverage.
And the pool
the
is part of the reason there's a
setbacks-
lot coverage,
The
right?
pool is allowed to be where it is, although he's got a lot coverage problem because he's got more coverage than he's allowed.
Oh, sorry. So the pool is okay to be there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pool is
Okay, so,
to be there.
but the
Yeah,
lot coverage, you're actually
Let
taking,
me correct that on the record, Doug, I'm sorry. The pool can be there, it is the lot coverage issue.
Coverage issue.
but aren't you actually taking it down from 24.7?
24-2. Yep, after we would be done. So, because we have these stone walkways around the house, it eats into that impervious structure ratio.
And when did you buy this house?
I bought it in 2018. Everything outside was there when we bought it.
So from a decking and 1 foot a house, that's,
Make a motion.
I make a
Well-
motion, well, we're just approving it though, right?
Good
So
courtesy.
Yeah, you're right. It's a recommendation
I
to,
recommend the approval of that. I don't think it would be
Yeah, I have no
For
problem
somebody
with any of this.
tear up part of their house that they bought when it was possibly built incorrectly, or at least not in accordance with those rules.
Also, what I'd like to see, or what I'm seeing on this, is that, a lot of times where we do have proposed pools coming in with, with a lot coverage increase, there's an absorbent amount of paver decking.
Whole
and-
house.
And a lot of stuff. And so it appears to me that this is essentially just coping really around this pool, from looking at this plan. So if this is in fact the plan that you guys are planning on moving forward with, then to me, you've done a good job of trying to reduce the coverage on there, and the fact that you're actually reducing it from what it was before this pool even went in. I would say recommend approval. to
Has the HOA sign off as well?
Yes, sir. I have direct neighbors who are in the neighborhood with me, the back neighbor who's not in the neighborhood, and then HOA.
And then the adjacent piece is a 30-foot right-of-way.
Yes.
Mhm.
All right, so
Don't have a problem with it.
I don't know.
Robin, you want a summary on, why don't you give a summary of what our recommendation
Man, I
is?
wasn't taking notes this time. So we are making a recommendation to approve the existing deck and 1 foot of house that are both in the setback. And we're also approving the ability to actually reduce the coverage, but for it still to be above the allowable 20%.
Basically, recommending approval for the requested
For the request. yes.
24.2.
Correct.
Yes, okay. Okay.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next case is 6B. It's a variance also, so we'll be recommending to BZA and not voting on this. And it's 130 Von Lake Drive, Milton, Georgia. Applicant here?
Good evening. My name is Ashley Barton. I'm with Georgia Classic Pool. I'm here with the homeowners of 130 Von Lake Drive. The Gogglers are here. We are here to request two variances to build a swimming pool. First variance is an encroachment into the 75-foot impervious stream buffer by 42 square feet. And then the second variance is to increase our lot coverage. Currently, it's sitting right at 20%. We're asking for an increase to 23.79%. We did have an original plan that we presented to the staff when we first started. The pool was actually behind the house directly, and we were encroaching right under 800 square feet into the 75-foot buffer. And then our original lot coverage was at 24.88%. So we have worked with the staff trying to figure out a different place to put the pool. And so the plans you have now are showing where we got it. We did propose flow wells for stormwater. Then we were also proposing permeable pavers. Still. That's it.
Robin, do we have any opposition?
We do not.
Okay, hearing no opposition, we'll close the public hearing and get into each one of these. Ken, you want to lead off with this?
I do. So my first question is the request is to encroach into the 75-foot impervious buffer. It looks to me like we're encroaching, the request is to encroach in majority of that 75-foot kind of up, midway to the 50-foot. Does the city calculate how much actual square footage of disturbance is in there? Or is it just the impervious? Robin, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Can you say that again?
Does the city calculate how much impervious square foot, or excuse me, just square foot of disturbance is in that buffer? Or is this essentially just to go in within that 75-foot buffer to disturb for the proposed pool?
I think the application currently just shows the encroachment square footage, not what would happen with the actual construction if you had to get construction limits.
Okay. So kind of like I said before, to me, I don't have a problem with the pool. I don't have a problem with doing a little bit of disturbance in that 75-foot buffer. It looks like there's a retention pond in the back. So you've got that to kind of work with. What I do kind of have a problem with is me as a builder, when I go through these variances and stuff for my clients, is if I'm only looking to disturb, if I've only got 42 square foot of impervious, then I wouldn't even waste my time going through a variance. I would just reduce that somehow. So for me, I don't think allowing 42 square foot is not much, but I think it could be redesigned very easily to take 42 square foot out, so there wouldn't even need to be a variance requested. Also, too, the difference that I saw on the last application is that there was minimal decking there, and they did a really good job to try to reduce that square foot of lot coverage, whereas this has got a massive pool deck. So I did some rough calculations based on this, and I feel like it could very easily, shrink the 11.3 foot pervious decking to 10 foot and the pool to 15 foot, and you wouldn't even need a variance. So for me, my recommendation, I would say, is that I think it needs to be looked at again to try to reduce it as a whole. I'd be okay with the encroachment in the lot coverage if it was a little bit closer. But to me, it looks like this is a huge pool deck. It's a big home, but I think that there could have been more to been done to reduce both of those.
Bob, what's your response to that?
I totally agree. I think it's so easy to push the pool up a little bit. There's certainly enough distance between the house and the pool, and to delete some of that pool decking and get it into compliance. I'd be willing to sit with the applicant before the BZA meeting and work with them to try to just actually eliminate the need for that variance. I totally agree with you.
Would
I'd be
we,
willing to work with her.
would we table this, or just you work with them before BZA, or what would be the best way?
Or would we make the recommendation to make those adjustments?
That's correct. So you're just recommending, so you can make that, all the points that Commissioner Warlick said, and then we'll work with the applicant, and then hopefully by the time the BZA comes around, it'll be resolved, and either they can withdraw it if they don't need it anymore, or go ahead, and if they want to push to have it heard, then.
Like the last one, there's two issues here. One is that it's just barely into the buffer, which could easily be pushed back, and then the other is the coverage, right?
Right, the previous one was lot coverage, not a buffer, and then the setback for the existing deck and a tiny bit of the home.
Can I ask a question? Are y'all? Okay.
Yeah,
Sure,
you go ahead.
Is, I think to your response, with the reason that we did keep that variance request and for the 42 square foot, had it just been solely that, we would have definitely kind of maneuvered it. I feel like we definitely can. But are you saying to not approve the lot coverage as well, or just the encroachment into the buffer?
I would say my recommendation would be to go back and try to reduce that even more. From what I see is I see a pool deck that's almost twice the size, or quite a bit larger than the pool. And I get it. I've got a pool. I like to, you want to hang out, you want to have plenty of space, but I feel like for us to go through and recommend approval for something, to me, I feel like there needs to be some sort of hardship or some sort of looking at it in a way to where it's, hey, what can we do to try to reduce this? So even if it's just reduce a little bit of the paver to the north and south of the, of the pool, and shrink it by, instead of 11.3 feet to 10 feet. Like I said, I just did those quick calculations, and based on that, you wouldn't need the lot coverage. You wouldn't exceed the 20%.
Because our calculations showed that we were already the existing was already over 20%.
20.202.
So you're there before you even
5.
build the pool.
Correct. Which is why which I totally get the I feel like we could do some things as far as decreasing. I don't know. I think we were hoping to do the permeable pavers. I know it's not going to count against it, but we were hoping that by installing the permeable pavers would still help with that drainage down to the,
Bob,
Does the
how
city
much?
count the pervious pavers as 50% coverage, or are you counting them at 100%?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, Bob. How much credit do those pavers get them?
They still count for lot coverage because most people don't, no matter how you detail them, they don't really drain.
Install them correctly. Yeah.
Install them.
They put the
drain.
sand in and all that, and then
Yeah,
they're
they
really
need a whole
not.
under paver system, and it's so expensive. Everybody tells me they're not doing it. So I really think I would like, if you just maintain your recommendations. I'll take those, and then
I
I'll
stand
meet
by
with the-
that. I mean, that's
I'd
me,
like to meet
right?
with the
We
applicant
obviously
because I
have a
really
board,
think I
but-
can get the applicant's plan to comply, where they just eliminate the need for
Does the pool count towards the impervious? I thought,
It
it
does.
does.
what does the pool not count towards? I felt like a couple meetings ago, it was pointed out to us that didn't,
Every municipality looks at it differently. And
what it was. Okay.
it's a bucket of water, in my opinion. So if it drains to it,
Maybe
but-
I was just thinking about your comment on it, not what we were told by staff.
Yeah, so like I said, is I don't have a problem with the pool, and even the lot coverage, but just looking at it, to me, I feel like there is areas that could be reduced to try to reduce that lot coverage. And I do feel like you could reduce that wall on the northern end of the pool by 4 feet and pull that pool in, and you would completely get away or do away with the 42 square foot ask within that buffer
and still
of
just
impervious surface.
decreasing the lot coverage requests.
Yeah, I think so.
So that would still get you to BZA
Right.
because you got to do the lot
But
coverage.
just on the one thing.
But just on one issue.
And that reduced
And I mean,
coverage.
at the end of the day, it's going to increase the value of the home, which is great. That's
Correct.
We want that.
I don't have,
Having built a pool and being told it had to be in a very specific place on my property, I can sympathize with you for sure. But I agree with Ken that just moving that wall back, both the decking and the pool, it'll shrink the lot coverage. It'll get you out of the buffer.
It'll cost less.
And you feel,
Well, she's
you're the
building a
designer
pool,
of
so
the pool, right? You're the pool builder, designer?
Yeah. I won't take credit for the design, but yeah.
You what?
Started this precedence too, right? With the Lake Haven pool that we had a couple months back. And so I feel like if we're going to stick to that, then that's something that we need to kind of carry forward with all of these when we see them. So
I think that's important to be on record that we've just more and more in the 75, in the 50, it's just really gotten out of hand. And so we have to let the public know in this kind of meeting that we're really trying to enforce those buffers and lot coverages as Milton really explodes with growth and stormwater and in the whole city. So there you go. So let's clean up this recommendation, Mr. Ken, and make sure we're clear what we're sending forward and that Bob's commitment to work with him.
well, did anyone else have a?
I think we're in agreement.
Yeah, so
You did an excellent job.
I make a recommendation that the client go back and try to work with staff to try to reduce, eliminate the request for the 42 square foot of impervious surface within the 75 foot impervious buffer. And then also try to reduce, if not completely eliminate, the lot coverage request in the, or for the overall lot.
And you said this will still get us to BZA as long as we can meet these conditions after meeting. Okay.
So if you can get it to the point where it's back to 20%, I'm not, then you wouldn't need the variance
Right.
anymore, but
Right.
we can work with you.
20% and they have the pool, they're going to be over.
Decreasing.
Yeah, just reduce it.
Reducing the
reducing it.
3.79.
Then you don't even need their approval. you can go ahead and submit for building permits and then wait 6 months for concrete, you know?
Take out some more cement somewhere.
That,
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Robin, could I, convenience here, can I ask that we change the agenda and move 7A up and do it right now? Because we got a large number of people here that's going to be quickly, and then they can be on their way.
Sure, whatever. You're the
All right, I'd
chair.
like to make a motion to move 7A, Milton's Cuisine, up and move 6C down one case.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So motion carries. So we'd like to hear case 7A next, and that's Milton's famous bar and grill, or cuisine, or whatever.
Yeah.
Bar and grill, huh?
Just for the record, so that, full disclosure, I always leave this meeting and go straight to Milton's. And sit in their bar once a month, for sure, on Tuesdays.
Thank you, guys. My name is John Piamonte. I'm one of the partners at Milton's. We are looking to do a much needed renovation and expansion to the building. We were trying to do it a couple of years ago, then obviously when COVID hit, that put a big wrinkle in our plan. So we spent a lot of time kind of revising the plan, putting a little bit more thought into it, try to really do it in such a way that would be as fitting as possible with the amazing redevelopment and gentrification of what's been happening here in Milton. It's pretty amazing. Every time I drive up here, it's just, what's been happening. So kudos to everyone involved in that. But we're here hopefully for a final review of our plans so that we can go in for permit and get everything lined up. Our hope is to start construction January 1st of next year.
And we brought a posse.
You brought what?
We brought a posse to answer your technical questions.
Well, you all are great, but the man in the back's my favorite best guy, so he should be up here telling us how great you are. Mr. Manager, who's been a great manager the last, year? You came a year ago?
Yes, sir.
You're doing a great job. So go ahead, proud architect, tell us your story, what you're going to do here.
Okay, well, our goal is to add on to the existing building. The existing restaurant is 4,350 square feet, and we're going to be adding on a new bar area, a new covered dining, and some terrace dining on the outside. The new heated square foot that we're going to add is right at 2,000 square feet. That'll bring us to a total of 6,300 square feet. So we want the look to match what's there, but yet also give it a more modern, new look there for the covered dining, the glass there under the covered dining. And then Greg can speak to the outdoor dining and the landscape that's going on.
Well, part of the, hello, my name is Greg Arnold, the landscape architect for the project. And part of the addition, obviously, is the outdoor dining and environment, which is included on the plans. And really, in response to the last meeting, we were asked to do a couple things, which I'll elaborate on, I guess, drainage being one. So we did the TSS spreadsheet, and we have increased the stormwater storage per that spreadsheet. So that's on the new site plan. And really, that's the only change on the site plan is the increased water storage. And we went over the top with it. So I wasn't sure. Jerry said something about just counting the new impervious. When we counted, if you look at the spreadsheet, it asks for all of it. So we counted all of it. And we can't even counted the pavilion that's not even part of this phase of the project. So we went over the top as far as the drainage goes. So I think we've more than covered it. And I've got this, I can share this TSS spreadsheet if you like. And then the other was the lighting. So I think there's lighting examples in the packet. I do have the photometrics for the parking lot lights. If you want to see those, I can hand those to you. There's only 4 parking lot lights in the very back lot. Most during the evening, it's a ballet park. So, it's a lot of ambient light there anyway, but we did position 4 parking lot lights there. Then the other lights on the property are mainly low-level path lights and things like that. So I'll be glad to elaborate on any of that if you like.
Since you're on parking, we're doing great and growing like crazy in Crabapple here. I do worry some about the parking, and we're asking more about parking on every building as all these buildings get built and more success comes. So how are you adding all this square footage when it's a very tight parking situation now?
You know, I can't even answer how many spots the place holds.
Derek and Robert.
Yeah, so
Both
hi,
of you.
hey, I'm Derek Dollar, executive chef and managing partner. So I've been at Milton's for almost 12 years, and we have seen a definite increase, right? But we try to keep it as well as we can. We do share parking lot space with our neighbor, the Pedowitz Group as well. So parking, we are allowed to park there after 5 o'clock. And so that helps us.
So you do have a lease or an agreement with them?
Correct. Yes.
It's like 100-year, when we bought the property, call it maybe like 8-9 years ago, we did a 100-year agreement. The gentleman we bought the property from, he owned both. We bought the restaurant, Pedowitz bought that other building, but there's a 100-year cross easement agreement in place.
Okay, good. So you do have a cross easement and parking rights over there.
Correct.
Okay.
When
Bob, you got any comments on that?
When Milton's was first built, the city ordinance required 10 spaces per 1,000. But now that we've been building out the downtown and we've been sharing parking and more people are walking and it's a more walkable community, which we're inducing, the council reduced it to 3.5 per 1,000. So they do meet the standards as far as their square footages. And we're kind of hoping that as that area and that quadrant builds out, we do have public parking garages and everybody sharing parking. And so it should be people park one spot and just walk over and utilize the services.
Are you all aware of the new district on Mayfield that the moratorium that just went into place a week ago?
And for what?
So their building application came in way before their initial, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, so
Right.
prior to it.
But as owners, you ought to look into this district. We think it helps. We're really, you're just exactly what we want. We're concerned the district may have some other things. So Robin, or one of you, can you send him the map of the district and get him educated on that as an owner? I never got with you all as I met with the majority of owners in the district. But now there's a moratorium in place. As Bob said, you were already in the pipeline, and we love what you're doing. So it really doesn't affect you, but you should know about it. I think it enhances your value long-term, and then plays into Bob's point about all of us looking at all this parking in this 22 parcel district. So I didn't get with you, so I want you as an owner to see the district and know what's going on. And it shows all the property owners and everything that's happening. So you could be sure and reach out and get that.
How many additional tables are you adding?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Even though we're adding the square footage, one of the goals is to increase the spacing. Like a lot of the tables right now are kind of tightly packed. Yeah, so where the covered patio is right now, it seats 40 people. That's going to turn into basically the bar area. There'll be a bar area and it'll have five, 6 top size booths. But so that area will technically seat less than we're seating right now. And in some of the other areas, the spacing is just going to be increased. So I would say we're probably adding around 40 seats total.
40 seats. And currently with the tent out there and sitting people out in the yard, how many people were sitting out there?
I mean,
the tent's for events only. Right.
Oh, it is for events only? I never sat out there.
The tent
I
goes
was
up on some weekends and down for weddings and what have
we used it during right after COVID when no one wanted to dine inside, but it's only.
So you're never operating the restaurant while there's an event going on in the tent?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So that's my point. So how many people do you have in the tent?
So when we do events, we're looking to get an, do offsite kind of valet at that point.
Right. My point is, when you do events now, you have how many
We can do a
people?
sit down, we can do a sit-down dinner for 65 people in that tent.
And so you're actually, in doing this, you're only adding 40-something spots, whereas the tent right now is already 60. So it's actually less spots in the building than what you're currently using the property for. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, and then I had in your design book, which is, who did the design book? You did a great job. I've been real touchy for 4 years now about we want these kind of books and we want them filed because we want to know what we're going to get, especially with supply chain and COVID. You know, we were going to get gray and we got green and we were going to get metal and we got fiberglass and all kind of things. So your book's really good. My question is the handrails, what material and what color? You don't call out the handrail material or the color.
The material is steel, that's our builder. There. And she's got boards with, she's got some.
I have samples if you guys, I do not have the railing, I was not able to get the railing, but if you guys want stone, brick, roofing.
And we did follow Robin and Bob's advice about doing rails that we would see here. They give us some other specifications and then they'll be,
All right, so they are metal though.
they are metal.
Okay, I wanted to make wood rots and looks bad and peels, and so they're metal rails. And then would you use this window? What color do you think you're going to paint them?
The windows,
No, the rails.
rails like a black tone. One of the tones that's already on the building, one of the darker tones.
All right, I'm good with that. We'll make that note that the rails aren't covered. Yes, sir.
If it's okay with the board, would you mind if she did bring those materials up? I'd just like to see it for the record.
Yes, please bring them up.
Just so that when you approve it, you're approving it for those materials, just in case.
There's no change from the materials that's what's in your book. Is that right?
There is no change. No, I just brought the actual
samples if you'd like to see them.
Because you've called out your colors and your materials in your book.
Everything else that's new, like any of the paint on any new additions that, like, if we go back in and put our siding, will be the same as what's there now. So we're not changing anything. We're just trying to enhance what we have.
Do you currently have cedar columns on the front?
We do not have any.
You're changing all the columns to cedar or most of the columns?
Just the two at the entrance, when you walk up, we're extending that entranceway. So when you do valet, that you'll be covered if it's raining to the valet and bringing the steps down the front of the building. So
Can I
that's
get rid of the little tent?
When it blows over all the time?
It would be so awesome. And then.
Bob, you want to look at these, make sure you're good with these?
Yeah, well, Mr. Chair, can I just make, before we forget about it, apologize for the oversight, but if you go to the lighting page, I want to make note that the parking lot lights are not the correct type. They should be the shepherd's hook. And since we're Georgia Power, they're really easy to get.
That's perfect because
Yeah.
Greg will tell you that was like the only concern I had was the parking lot lights.
Yeah,
And I
so-
know exactly what you need.
So
I'm
when you
all-
make your motion, just, mention something about the parking lamps to be shepherd's hook, so.
All right, do we have any opposition? Okay, hearing no opposition, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I'd like to just be on record. Y'all do a great job. You're a great asset for Milton. You set the tone for Milton. Bob set a brand idea. I guess the farmers did in 1830 and 1900. And Bob just enforced it for the last 15 years, or we would look like Sandy Springs. So, where I'm from. And that's why I moved to Milton. So you've done a great job. We love this architecture. This fits the district vision we're working on. And over the next 6 months, Bob and staff will be writing the overlay district and the all these contributing structures we want up and down Mayfield. And you're just the best example. When do you think you're going to really do this work, Mr. Owner?
We're planning to start 1st of January.
Okay. So this will be really neat, and the community loves your restaurant, and your restaurant fits what we want Milton to be, right, Mr. Architect?
Right.
Who's 15 years fought the battle to keep it that way. So we'll turn it over to the board here in a minute for their vote, but you just do a great job. It's our favorite place. So I've never met the chef, but I always know the managers because he's back there cranking out that great food. All right,
Derek a couple
can we
times.
get the board to make a decision?
Yeah, no, I've met Derek a couple times. You do a great job. My wife and I love it. And I mean, I'm glad you're extending the size of the bar. I guess I'll go on record saying that. It's so tight in there. But yeah, I think it's fantastic. I love the design. I love the look. I'm excited. I hate that you're not starting until January, but.
And obviously the book doesn't include all of the interior touch points, which are.
You'll enjoy it.
It's going to be amazing. And even the current bar, we're going to demo the bar that's there. It's just going to be another seating in or kind of lounge area, but it's going to get a complete overhaul as well.
And we couldn't, I think we'd all agree, we couldn't do it without the support we've gotten from the city, the support that Robin and Bob have given us getting to this point. We've been working on this for 2 years. We're excited too. This is like a big day.
Yeah, we're all of Milton's excited about this. This is really going to be great. And just at the time, I just happened to have a copy. One of you come get this is the district at Milton, and Mr. Owner can take that with him. And as we really push for this character area and what we're going to do during this 6-month moratorium, as Bob and staff write it and create it, is what your building is. So, and what the 3 other houses are and some other buildings and the Cotton Gin next door. Character area, more walkable, which plays into Bob's parking issue. So we just really applaud you, but they may not approve you. Let's see what they're going to do. It's going to get a recommendation.
I think it's a
I'll
charming
motion to approve.
from more and more characters. I really love that. Just wanted to say.
Yeah, to Lee's point, I mean, I think for me, looking at the architecture, you guys have done a great job of tying the existing and the new with a little bit of the modern twist to it, which I get totally. You did a good job and you hit the nail on the head, in my opinion. So congrats. And is the bar still going to be open during renovation?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
we're going to do it in phases. So the bar is going to stay intact. What's going to happen in January 1st, we'll lose the covered patio, at which point we've talked about being able to use the tent during construction for seating. The inside of the restaurant will continue to operate as normal, as will the bar. The covered patio will come off. We'll build the entire structure over about a 5-6 month period. And then sometime after that, once the new Milton's is there, the patio and the landscaping, and there'll be, I mean, what we try to do is create almost like the canoe of the north, basically, with the way, the patio and the walking trails and the landscape and little seating areas. So once that's done, then we'll short-term close down the bar to do that conversion, which is not going to be anything major, but it's going to be a design overhaul and just demoing of the bar so it functions for events, for overflow seating, and even kind of a little bit of a lounge type of night.
Yeah, bottom line is this fits with what I think the city and this board is looking for. It's a valuable asset to the city of Milton. So, a good job, and I'm excited to see it. So
Likewise, yeah. And
I
so
think
I'll
you
make
were
the
gonna-
motion to approve 7A Milton's Cuisine and Cocktails at 800 Mayfield Road for approval.
With the Shepherd's Hook lighting for the parking lot.
Yeah, with the lighting, Shepherd's Hook lighting.
No, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to go
Great job. Love what y'all do.
and complete 6C. And 6C is Reliant Corporate Office, Heritage Walk at Mayfield Road. And what I'd like to do is break this into 2 pieces. One is the civil and engineering, and then the other is the architecture. And then we can do 2 things. And so is the applicant here?
Yes, sir. Applicant is here.
Okay, state your name.
Steve Rowe with AEC, 50 Warm Spring Circle. I'm here, sorry. I'm representing Reliant Corporate Office, and I've got a few slides to deal with the site, if that's okay with you. The project is located at the corner of Heritage Walk and Mayfield Drive, where the traffic circle currently is. It's a small, about 7/10 of an acre piece where we're going to be doing a corporate office nestled in the way you see on the screen here. We're using the existing driveway, which is across the street on Heritage Walk, coming in and carving into the slope to create the parking deck under the building. So we're making a good use of the project by using the topography as it stands today. What I've done on this slide here is I've shaded the light brown is the deck area that's going to be over top of the parking, and the building itself is sitting in the more of the orange color. This kind of gives you a glimpse of underneath the building itself, showing you how the site lays out the parking. We've got it oriented in a one-way direction to be able to make the most efficient use of the space under the building to be able to get the parking that we needed to be able to support this site. The stormwater is within an area that already has common detention for the city of Milton, so we'll be paying into that fund. We'll be handling our water quality under the deck itself through an infiltration system of stone gallery and manifold of pipes network. This is the landscape plan that we come up with. It meets the T4 zone for the coverage along with the street trees. We're using a mix of willow oaks, black gums, and Muskogee crepe myrtles for color along this, and a various amount of shrubs. And here's kind of a glimpse of the plant palette that we're currently using on this site. We got the shade trees for the willow oaks, the black gums, osmanthus for the corner accents, Muskogee crepe myrtles for some color, and then various loropetalums, dwarfiopon hollies, oak leaf hydrangeas, some bastiliums, abelia, iteas, just a lot of color, a lot of things happening all 4 seasons, trying to make the most of our site with such a small area. We're trying to give such a big impact. One of the things that the architect and I are looking at is possibly doing some things along the hardscape along this corner where the stair tower comes through the deck itself and creating more of an organic pattern along the ground with using both hardscape and softscapes within that covered area as well. At this point, I can answer any questions you might have on the site and landscape. If not, I can turn it over to the architect.
Any discussion on engineering?
I say let's hear from the architect too. And
We're going to do that after engineering.
oh, you want to do two-phase? Okay.
Yeah, let Steve do his thing, and then we'll do architecture.
Will you go back? What were you doing with the hardscapes over by the stairwell down to the parking deck?
Right now, we're still kind of working that out. With this being a cursory review, the architect and I are kind of working hand in hand of what we can do on top of the deck and then have it kind of flow into the natural landscape. We may do things like artificial turf, some different hardscape materials that kind of flow in and out of the soil area as well as the hardscape, trying to just not have such a hard edge line to kind of help things flow from the sidewalk all the way into the building, kind of leads you into a different organic look. And that's what this slide is. This is one that y'all don't have in your packet. It's kind of a work in progress as he and I are working together, trying to figure all this out on such a small site. There's a lot to fit in and a lot of different things we're trying to accent.
On your landscaping,
Yes,
I
sir.
worry about the retaining walls. We have a very soft environment with the townhomes, the office medical, and the library. And along Charlotte Drive and on a couple of your sides, these are probably 8 to 10 foot retaining walls.
Some of them are, yeah, they can get up that high.
And as we get down the road, I want to be very clear. I want to see those landscaped and then what finish is going to go on those retaining walls.
We could have matching brick, but one of the things that we're seeing that is a nice softening method is to use some creeping fig along those to help create a green wall effect.
Can we creep the fig over the brick?
Yes, we can do that.
I don't want to see exposed concrete.
Right.
This, in the next 20, 30, 50 years, is our most important. Some might say Deerfield is, but this whole crabapple area is a giant tax base and enjoyment center.
Right.
And many of those people in the townhomes walk over to Crabapple Market to go to the concerts and stuff.
Right.
And an 8 to 10 foot retaining wall in concrete is not going to work there.
And we'll have several layers of plants in front of that as well, but I think adding the creeping fig along with that will really help soften that.
But if it dies, I want to see the brick.
Right, understand.
So, we're just not going to have any stucco covered walls or concrete walls.
Understood.
Or parged walls. So
Right.
we want to see brick. And then if some of that plant dies, we still see a really pretty brick wall there.
Right.
And
Hey, Charlie, just real quick, when you're saying the retaining walls, you're referring to, and these aren't numbers, so I'm not sure what slide this is, but this one here, you're talking about the front end right here too, where that's not necessarily a retaining wall, that's kind of like the wall underneath the.
It's technically like foundation wall, but
It's a foundation wall. You're talking about.
the site is falling to the back and they're putting the deck in there. So it pushes the front up and then gives us those retaining walls in the back on a slope site. So it's good engineering. It just got to look great when it's done.
Right, understand.
Yeah, the thing that this reminds me of is I think it's the Alpharetta Lofts in downtown, the Nest Cafe in downtown Alpharetta. If you go drive back behind there where the charter school is, kind of see in the parking deck.
Right.
Which is not bad there because it's not really a focal point. It's all parking back there. It's all parking. This is a really major intersection.
Right.
I mean, you're going to be looking right in there. That the landscaping around this, the walls, as Charlie said, really does need to look sharp. I imagine some of the parking lot's going to camouflage that. Otherwise, it just looks sort of very industrial, very governmental. It just looks
It looks like City Hall.
like a city hall.
Let's get into the architecture. in a
But
minute.
yeah, I'm just talking about the parking garage too, just like
Yeah, the
very
garage-
downtown garage heavy. I just think that the landscaping really, really matters there.
Right. And we do have ample landscaping along the top. One thing I will point out is the areas that are outside of where the deck itself is it's actually a cut slope. So you're looking over the car. So the landscaping comes up to it, then the slope down, and then the cars are down below. So it's actually doing a good job of screening, the headlights and grills of the cars itself.
So Steve, big picture, what everybody's saying is on Charlotte Drive, as you're coming around, we're not real happy with the existing building because you see a whole sea of parking. Not much landscaping and a sea of parking. We don't want to see this looking into the deck and seeing a lot of parking.
Right.
So the landscaping, as we come around there, myself have done it numerous times, walking to the concerts by the back of this site. We want to see it looking great, as Reed points out.
Well, you just got the whole thing open. Did you consider just making an entry and an exit point, or just closing it off a little bit?
We can try. We just don't have a lot of room through here. I mean, if you can see, we're really neck down to a very limited area. As a matter of fact, the only way I can get parking to work there is on an angled situation. So if I try to do 90 degrees, then I don't have enough room for parking and a drive aisle.
But I would point out, wait a minute, I would point out, that's your choice. It's a little property, and we're going to get into mass in a minute, and you're putting a whole lot of mass and a whole lot of cars on a very little piece of property. We don't want this to be negative in these views that Reed's brought up because you're putting great amount of mass on a little piece. I'm all for it if you can make it pretty and you can make it where it works.
Softer.
But when you come back, we don't want you unhappy if we reject it because we're warning you now on the things that we're concerned about.
Okay, and that's why we're here. I want to hear that so we can work towards that.
And what Reed's suggesting, I think, is if you were to wall that off so you weren't looking into the parking deck, you would lose 4 parking spots. Is that right?
I don't know yet. I'd have to.
I mean, just looking at how this diagram on this page
Maybe
looks.
more by the time it.
Well, but it looks like you've got 4 cars kind of hanging out.
4 maybe.
You got 4 cars hanging out from half under the parking deck and half out. And if there was a wall there, like Reed said, entrance here, exit there, then you would lose those 4
I think
parking
it
spots.
changes the
but
layout inside.
But there's a wall further back. So, where the existing grade and the existing parking lot is at 1114, this wall looks like you've got a spot on the grade at 1109, which means you're going to have a 5-foot wall in that corner, correct? And then dropping it down.
Correct.
So there actually will be, it's going to be almost subterranean, right?
Exactly.
And so but you'll still see from that wall on the back side of it coming around Charlotte, you'll still have about 8 foot from, say, top of that subterranean wall to the finished floor elevation of the building itself. So it'll be about an 8-foot gap. So I would love to see some trees. For me personally, that I think would help. As far as what they were saying about coming on Charlotte is just having some large trees there that maybe kind of cover that 8 foot of distance from the top of that wall on the back side of that parking deck to the ground level of that finished floor elevation.
Right. And right now what we've got some recurve ligustrums planted pretty tight so that we can keep that as a nice green hedge year round all the way through there.
Mr. Chair, can I just interject?
Yes, sir.
Something else for the board to consider. Very often on parking garages, they put in fake windows. They look like windows. They have metal frames, but they're open. And that actually helps the calculations of the garage for ventilation purposes and things like that. Lighting here, let's let natural light in. So maybe we can work with the applicant to put some sort of fake fenestrations in that wall. So when you're walking on the street, on the sidewalk, you're not just seeing a wall with landscape. You're actually seeing some fenestrations. Might just be openings that go through. They look like, you could just put windows and frames. Looks like it's part of the building. Just some other options for the board to consider.
Yes, that's a very good suggestion.
It'll soften that wall for sure.
And the only other thing I want to make sure I bring out to the board is that there is interconnectivity. I know it's a little hard to read, but he will be doing interconnectivity to John Gaston's property next door.
Okay.
So what we do is we try to interlock all the parking.
Yeah, we've planned for that eventuality. We've not gotten together with him. We've tried. I think that he's been trying to get.
Is that stair 3? Is that stair 3 coming up from that parking deck kind of to that parcel? Or is that you're just talking about in the front?
No, there's towards the back, we've got an actual vehicular interconnection out to our driveway.
Okay.
Was the connection point that we were asked to make
Oh,
by the city.
Yeah.
And we'd like to actually to work out some common dumpster area over there as well on that kind of no man's land between our properties, because I think it's a good place for him to relocate his and us to put ours and have it in one location versus two smaller ones. And it might be easier to screen in one location like that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, my thoughts, if we're talking about engineering, I think you've done a good job on such a small site. I think we'll get into the mass of the structure shortly, but those are, I think, to me, it's just that wall. I do kind of see where it's going to be subterranean. Mm-hmm. So anything you can do, and then to Bob's point, really that where you're making up for the drop in the contours to get that parking deck under there is to try to come up with some ideas to soften that just long straight wall that's going to be out there.
Okay, fair enough.
Any more discussion on the engineering?
Do you know, is this going to be just mostly office?
Yeah, it's actually a single use office for one. It's a corporate office for Reliant.
Oh, okay.
It'd be their
I was going to
headquarters.
say you could almost cover the parking lot, cover the parking lot that is going into that subterranean basement and do something really fun there. It almost would be a double whammy. You could pick up some square feet above too, but
he's maxed
We
out.
actually
He's
are
maxed out
at,
on the
we are
square
maxed
footage.
out on square footage on this.
the only other comment that I had was the where the driveway comes out to Charlotte Road.
Mhm.
That is really, I go there, it's just my way to work every day. And that, for whatever reason, that curve is very funky. Like people coming out of Starbucks, they're not looking, maybe it's because of construction and fencing up right now, but people coming out of townhouses, I would just make sure that angling it that way instead of just going straight is the best thing.
Yeah.
It probably is, but.
And that's kind of, it's already been established. That's where our curb cut has to be, given where the traffic circle is and some others. So it's already been plugged into that location. So I think there may be some things we need to do to make it safer as we get into the engineering of it. We can look at that and work with Rob Bell Ross at the city and figure that out.
It's teenagers.
Roundabout right there.
Yeah, we can put
No,
another
but a 3 or 4 way stop may not be a bad idea.
But I just want,
I was
Commissioner
gonna say
Casey,
like
so
a
what happens
right
is
turn
the
only.
city built that
Yeah.
road.
Right
It
turn
was a
only
city
because
project.
Right in, right out.
Why don't
I'm
we
sorry,
let
because it doesn't really the radius on that entrance to me doesn't meet the city requirement? The radius for the entrance on that? Because it looks like,
That's what I was trying to say. So the city actually designed and constructed that road. That was part of our agreement. So the city dictated exactly where those entrances went, the curvature, so everything is working. It was all engineered and city signed off and approved it. We put in like 8 and 10 foot wide sidewalks. We put in crosswalks, raised crosswalks. So that the city really did quite a bit. We try to organize exactly where the lighting goes, all the medians. We really on-street parking. We did a lot to really facilitate that road.
So when
now we're
Ken,
kind of stuck with where we put it.
when Ken brought that up, I was going to say, staff's approved that and it's done and it's built and so it's there.
Well, that's great. My only thing is when you're coming down that road,
Yeah.
you get a little bit more visible of somebody taking a left out of that parking lot instead of coming around the curb and then hitting somebody coming left.
You're going to get less visibility when they plant all those trees to hide the
True. You just need to be
Parking
really
in
careful there.
building.
I know it's really not a fast, but people do go.
All right, for our courtesy, we've covered the engineering. Thank you, Steve, and you've seen where our hot buttons are. So next, we're going to get into architecture, and Mr. Ward, I think you're here. And I'd like to ring in on a couple of things before we start. One, this is really a great use, and we're very much in the use. I've had a couple of hour discussion yesterday with the owner. Wonderful guy, developer, really excited about putting his office here. And bought the land a couple of years ago. This isn't an under contract, maybe going to happen deal. He owns this piece of land. He's going to use 100% of the building. For our restaurants, it's really great that 50 employees are going to be there. We don't, in my opinion, as a developer, we don't have enough office in downtown Crabapple. More office plays into more walkability. Office is more lunch business. And so this is a great use. The architecture is very impressive, but I think inappropriate for this location due to its massiveness and due to its institutional look. It's not Milton by any means. And it's very significantly different than the other buildings you've done a block away. So while it's impressive architecture, it's my opinion, it's way out of place on this corner. On public record, the last year and a half, we needed to bring this building down as we come from the 3 stories to the 2-story townhomes, the 1-story medical, and have some architecture where that is coming down to meet this important circle. Single family, 1-story medical. We're entering a historic district there on Mayfield with historic houses going in there. So it's just too big. I think the mass can be worked with, Steve's issues and problems and parking, to get this customer, client, taxpayer, his 15,000 feet. But if we can soften it through a change in architecture and the large patios, the large columns, is the concerns I have. The owner actually is concerned with the cost. All of that more grandiose look is, he quoted me maybe as much as 800,000 more than he wanted to spend. And the owner is very much aligned with us, with me on what I'm saying today. We had a long discussion yesterday and he would like to see it changed. I, as a developer, don't want to come to these meetings myself and get shot down. And so I wanted to have a real good understanding with our owner, taxpayer, owner of this land. And he's our customer. He's going to be a citizen of, corporate citizen of Milton's. So I wanted to lead in with that, Tracy. And if the board wants to see it, I have pictures of every building on the street, 2 of which you've done, I believe. I can hand out some pictures of something the owner actually likes. So if you pass those out.
Yeah, we got it.
We may just get you to read that into the record in just a minute.
Oh, I just handed all my copies.
I'll
I can grab one to read though.
I'll give you one back.
Oh, here, yeah.
Then you've read it into the record. Okay, let's get into architecture on the Reliant Corporate Office Building.
All right. Mr. Roberts, thank you. Good to see you again. And board, thanks for hanging out a little extra so you can, we can kind of roll you into the process. Thank you for looking at it early on. We're by no means prepared with glossy renderings, et cetera. You're just seeing where we are in the current process. So certainly open to your feedback. I don't necessarily agree with it yet, but we're gonna back up and consider everything, of course.
Tracy, can I interrupt? I should have gotten Bob, the city architect and community development director, to ring in on my comments also. So can we get Bob to ring in first and then hear everything you have to say?
Of course. Want me to speak before or after?
I'd like you to speak in what you're thinking, having me spoken on what I think, so he can give us his thoughts, having heard both of us.
All right. Well, it's a two-story in height. So I don't want the renderings to deceive you as far as the scale of the building. The scale and mass of the building, as far as the square footage, is within the code limits. So that seems to work. The placement of the building on where it's placed on the site is also within the code. I do think that the massing of the columns and the entrances and those big porches that are sticking out really add to the overall look and feel of this building as far as its probably inappropriateness to Milton. And I think those things really need to be the focal point. The materials are also very important. The code does require a base, a middle, and a capital or a top. So that's in there too, but it's all the proportion. So when you're looking at buildings, mass and proportion are very important. So even though it's in compliance as far as square footage, I think the visual mass and proportion of the building is what this board's always concerned about and looking at. And I think the chair made a very good point of bringing out the other buildings within Milton, several of which architect Tracy Ward here has done with great success and has made Milton. So, but I think we need to tweak this a little bit and kind of get it into more compliance with that corner. So it's where it's placed within the city, right? It's where it's placed within the Crabapple area. It has a big impact as well. Because when we did the other buildings down here with the Orkin development, you'll see that there's 3-story buildings, and then we pushed them to 2-story buildings, and then we pushed them to 1-story buildings. And it's not, he didn't do that voluntarily. I mean, we did that because we wanted to break the scale down as it went closer to the residential area. In this case, it is a 2-story, it is a 3-story next door. So I think the number of stories is there. So some of the core things are really there. His square footage is working. His 2-story element is working. But again, this is why it's so important to have the board really look at the architecture, because it is, you can have all those elements checked. And then you look at the overall picture and you say, but it's just not fitting. And it's like, why is it not working? And it's got to do with just the proportion of the elements, the sizes of those columns, the heights of those columns.
The parapet walls. Parapet walls.
Parapet walls and the material, like if it's a brick building or something, so that even the material, like we were just seeing before, would really make a noticeable dent on the compliance with placemaking and branding and what we're looking for as far as architectural character.
So
those are the things you should be looking at.
Thank you. So in a recap, the use is great. The square footage, we want to get this gentleman all his square footage he can get per code. Staff will take care of that. And again, Tracy, you know I love great architecture, and it's a beautiful building. I'm going to pitch the Federal Reserve on building this building. And I could be the GC and you can be the architecture. But it just didn't right on the corner here in Milton at the library. The city Bob spent 5-7 years getting that library built Milton-like. So that sums up what I want. Now we want to hear from you, your thoughts, your owner, and what you want to do.
Okay. All right, let me start with, as you suggested, reading this narrative. And again, this is in process too. So just current sort of philosophies. The project sits at such a primary location of great importance to the center of Milton. In fact, some consider this roundabout corner the gateway, which is kind of what the earlier sellers and the brokers were referring to it as, the gateway project. Coming from the east end, of course. Such grand location commands, in our opinion, a monumental structure, a majestic edifice in the neoclassical style, nestled and underlined a landscape garden setting. And I think that's part of what's turning you off, is you're seeing these stark drawings. And we haven't really modeled in the landscape that Steve and I have in mind. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. The highly visible corner insists the building have no rear side. Therefore, all four facades each exhibits a large-scale classical portico supported by 30-foot tall columns, which are, as Bob said, proportionally proper per the classical language. Two opposite sides are round columns, two opposite sides are square columns. Neoclassical in its academic definition is simple elegance. If you look at these drawings again, they're a little bit deceiving because they're construction drawings. So I think it's simpler than you're imagining. Back to the scope conversation. The scope and scale of the facility will convey a timeless sense of mystery. What was this old place originally? The old city hall, a gracious courthouse, a stately residence. A lot of our projects, most of our projects, sort of our bread and butter specialty is making new projects look old. One of the greatest compliments we've had, and it's happened more than once, is to somebody to stand back one of our buildings 2 or 3 years later and say, "I'm so glad you restored that old building." In fact, I'm looking at one of ours right across there that has aged pretty well in the last 15 years. So the street frontages, south and east, the two, Mayfield and what's the other street? Heritage. It got renamed, so I can't make that click. Are completely landscaped. And I don't think you're really seeing that yet because we haven't really presented it to you properly yet. You're seeing it midstream. So at one point we had a parking lot up top next to the building. We had a smaller footprint and 3 stories. And we were able to work out with Bob and Robin the parking requirements and get it all below, and got rid of that upper paving and stretched the building out and down a little bit. So it's actually lower than it was. Let me just finish this. The building, featuring traditional brick wall elements and historically inspired fenestration rhythm, provides a refreshing addition to the downtown urban fabric and brings high classicism and neighborhood community value to the core of Milton. I can bounce all over the place because I've got 1,000 ideas I'd like to share with you. But on your comment about just the sheer size of the building, it's not going to be much taller than the dentist building. Again, I think because we're not showing enough scale figures and cars, it's hard. It looks bigger than it really is.
Let's take height out and let's look at mass with these big columns. In 100 years, there's been no building anywhere like this in this farming community up here. It's not that it's not a 2-story. We're not debating that. And I'm a builder of 50 years. He's a builder. So we're seeing your drawings for what they are. And actually your renderings are very good. These are great renderings because these are not construction drawings. These are wonderful renderings that show us the mass of these roofs and the sizes of these porches. The 15,000 feet is not out on these 4 porches. It's in the building. It is a mass issue that we've got on this little corner. And you are maxing out the parking and the square footage, which is fine. Of course. Of course. And we support that. But it's those patios and columns and the height of this building. And then it's really not a 3-story because you're trying to put 3,000 square foot office on the 3rd floor. So this party deck or office space up here makes it a 3-story building.
By building code, yes, but initially, we're not putting any habitable space up there. So it's a rooftop terrace.
Okay, then we don't want to permit that, Bob. If they're not going to put anybody up there, why are they building 3,000 feet up there? Now, I had a wonderful discussion with the owner, and he wants that to be occupied 3,000 square feet.
And if we figure out a way to get more parking, we can discuss it. But he knows until I find more parking, he can't have that.
All right, but Tracy, I can only respond to the drawings you submitted.
Okay.
And it shows 3,000 foot office up on the top of that building. And it makes it a 3-story building. And you're right, there, in my work over the last 3 days, there isn't enough parking. And so we'd like to see the next round without that parking or without the offices on the 3rd floor, making it a 3-story building, unless you come to us and you've got the parking, which you do not have now.
But do I not have the legal right to put a rooftop terrace up there?
That's a decision DRB will make on whether you can put it up. I'll ring Bob. What's your thought on a deck up
Well,
there?
it says right here that it's only 20.3 spaces required, but you have 47 spaces provided, correct? So he's got more than double the requirement for the parking.
No, it's, I don't know what you're looking at, but it's more than that.
On the C1, on the site drawings, it says 3.5 spaces per 1,000
I mean,
square
that'd be
foot.
nice if you're correct. We've overbuilt it, but I don't think that's right.
It says 20.3 spaces required, parking provided,
Well, we
47
will,
spaces.
I'm with you. We will work the square footage related to the parking out. But back to the architecture. Is there a consensus if you think the neoclassical is too much, too
The building's
heavy-handed?
stucco?
No,
Stone.
So
But I think
it's
that's
brick
part-
and
it-
stone. There's no stucco.
I think that's part of the, it's such a stark, like when you look at it, I mean, Federal Reserve, a state
Could we do one
courthouse
thing,
or
Doug?
something is what it looks like.
Can he answer what are the exterior materials? We think these could be
I thought it
stucco
was stone.
coins. They could
No.
be stucco.
They're not stucco.
So they're limestone?
We've got 3 different bricks so far, and I hate looking at colors and interior setting, but
I'm good for tonight, courtesy that they're all brick and
It's
it's
brick.
not any stucco. And these coins that you're doing will be stone?
the
The big
No, they're
coin?
brick. The corner coins that
they're-
are striped? No, that's done with brick.
Okay, they're going to be done with brick.
Yes,
Okay, good. Thank you. Just want to be sure it's all brick.
yes.
So if I may, so when I first saw this, I was like, wow, that's different. And I'm having a hard time conceptualizing because I know it's already come through and been approved that there's gonna be a building right next to it that's gonna be very similar in size to the
And
one that's
can you
already
see
there.
what's on my screen? Or to that point, what you just mentioned, the building next door? Can you see the top drawing of this and look to the right?
Yep.
Where I'm saying anticipated new building next door?
Yep.
That's the height of what they're proposing.
So
It's
is there?
bigger than ours.
Right. Oh, no, I understand that it is bigger than yours because it's the same size as the one that's already there. I know it is significantly bigger. Is there any way that we can get a plat looking down on like this elongated quarter so we can see what's there, the one that's already approved, and then what's going in here so we can get a better sense of how
we could put
massive
that
is this
together
thing
with-
that we're talking about?
I have a rough concept from them. It's not real accurate, but I could put that together. Steve could put that together for you.
It would just be nice to see.
Sure.
It's one thing to say, okay, this is what this building looks like, and just standing there solo, it looks massive and out of place. There's gonna be another building next to it. Does that make it look not so out of place, or does it make it look even more crowded and whatever? So my first thought was, wow, this is super different. And then I had to think, okay, but is it different good or different bad? Because if it's different and it's good, that's not a bad thing. And while we want to keep everything Milton branded, we don't want every building to be a barn or every building to look the exact same. So I'm totally good with there being some differences. So then I started thinking, well, what do other downtown areas in small towns look like? And so I did some research and pulled up pictures of downtown Madison, Georgia, downtown Moultrie, Georgia. And they all have, and I can show pictures, buildings that are similar to this, but not, to use Charlie's term, not as institutional. They're not any of these gray colors. They're all brick that are a softer colored brick. And so it blends in more with the downtown area of where it is. And they're on prominent corners in Madison and Moultrie. And I was like, well, what about, okay, those are smaller southern towns, but what about, we want to be a horsey town. So what do those towns look like? Well, if you look at downtown Bardesville or Louisville or Lexington, Kentucky, which it doesn't get any more horsey than those, they all have some prominent number of buildings that are also different than just the horse architecture. And so I love the fact that you're going, let's build something that maybe it looks like it could have been a fraternity. Now it's a fraternity house. Went to Georgia, right? There are a bunch of really old houses there that have been turned into fraternity and sorority houses that once served other purposes. And there's a uniqueness and historical value to that. And I think that's great. I think the problem with this is it looks harsh. Those colors are harsh and look very different than all the other buildings that are down there. I want to know, what does this look like if it is different tones, not so institutional looking? And what does it look like in context with what's around it? Because it looks huge. And if there's a building next to it that's bigger, it doesn't look so huge.
Let's look at that
That's why we
building next
tried to
door.
block it out.
Here's more of a Milton building, very soft, no giant sides or balconies on four sides. That's the building next door.
Right.
And you can look at that. That's a significantly different mass of architecture.
But again, but I guess the point that I'm making
Let's
is
pass
I'm
that around, because
I'm okay. Yeah, and I'm okay with it being different. I don't think everything needs to look the exact same.
I think
Any
there's a
town you look in, like if you go to downtown Madison, this is like, if let's say that they wanted to build a church, we wouldn't force a church to look like all the other buildings here.
Or an old merchant's building. I think there's a difference though between a building that looks federal, institutional, or one that could have been an old manor house.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And
Is I think the colors definitely drive that.
well, the colors, but also it is, even though I appreciate it's not a super tall building, it's not going to dwarf everything around it, but it just looks massive. And it does look like it was a bank, a city hall. And I think your comment was it's the gateway, and it's striking. But I think what we've been leaning towards was a softening into that area. So it kind of, it's jarring. It's a beautiful, beautiful design. I just don't know if it's quite right. If it was that it could have been, someone stands back and I wonder if that was the house that used to own most of the land around here. It would be just slightly softer.
this building, and if you do your examples and you bring it up in public hearing, I'd love for you to bring the pictures as I've done and pass them out, because we don't know what you found in those 4 or 5 cities.
Sure.
And it could be very helpful. So this is a courtesy. So send us those pictures that you're drawing your conclusions from. And that, as I've done for everybody tonight. So again, this architecture is very institutional with the columns. It's going to give it much more mass. It's way inappropriate for Milton on this corner. And I want to be on public record that that's where we are, because this is way out of place for this corner. And it's way too massive. And I've been doing this 50 years, Tracy, and I got a bunch of national awards, and this is way out of place, is my opinion. Now, there's 6 votes here. So do we vote tonight, or we just do a courtesy?
Just give recommendations or,
Where does
yeah.
this come from?
That is actually something the owner sent me.
I like this has a historic, the back of this building. I'm not sure about the curved glass. It's very cool, but I don't know if the curved glass front is right. But the back of that building looks like it had been an old warehouse merchant's building. It looks like it has historic value, but it's a bit lighter because of all the windows.
I also believe it ties in
And
a
that's
little
the
bit better, too.
the owner's first wish was that building.
I don't know what that photo is.
Well, can we give it? He sent it to me. John sent it to me
Talk- talk to
yesterday.
Todd? Is that
I mean,
who you're
Todd, yeah.
So,
Todd sent me that.
It looks like they belong on Windward Parkway though.
yeah, I'm gonna make a comment.
So now also,
I'll say,
Can I do one last thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me pass this around for everybody's review. Tracy, these are your two buildings that I think fit much more in Milton. And
So
these
you
are,
would rather see the more, what I call vernacular industrial.
it's Milton for 100 years. We just put a
I know,
historic.
but it's a unique site where four-sided, what I wanted to do, and this is just us back and forth, is have sort of a sculptural piece that had a different feel, a slightly different color scheme, rather than more of the same.
I think
if you look grand residential versus.
Maybe I pushed it too
Federal.
far, but I don't want to go so far back that it's just the same thing we've been doing everywhere else. This is not a mixed-use building. It's not going to be covered with signage and people coming and going. It's one single owner-occupied office. Nobody's going to be there
One
at
more
night.
time, so we can get through this evening and to the next meeting. We don't disagree with any of that. It is a office building. It is a single user. We understand the sign. We know what we're doing. We agree with you on all that.
I'm not arguing that.
We're just back to these columns, porches, height, and the third floor penthouse.
I think that the columns and the porches could look like any antebellum place in Athens that is now a fraternity or sorority house. If it wasn't so jarringly gray in these pictures.
So-
That's my issue with this, because could it, if this is the focal point, whatever we're calling that corner, right? And you're pulling into downtown Crabapple, if you had an old antebellum looking house right there, sure, that could look like the person that used to own that whole area, and that would be beautiful. But it's not as industrial looking as this. It would have to look like an old home with, you can still have those columns. Again, my fraternity
Which
house
would
on
more
Millage.
likely be
had-
siding, which I don't think y'all want siding.
Not necessarily, well, the rounded ones are columns, right? So the other ones
Right,
would
they-
not necessarily have to be, no, they could be
I'm
brick.
talking about the building.
No,
Instead of a brick building,
No, I'm suggesting I
stay
would,
with brick.
I would, but I wouldn't have it be a gray brick. I think the whole thing would be softer looking if it had a softer tone.
Okay.
So
Let me point out one other thing, Doug. On two sides, you're starting 10 or 12 feet.
Well, that's why I asked, when you said something about the retaining wall, I'm assuming that too. So like the creeping fig going up there, like soften that somehow.
But this is a federal building, a monument in Washington built way up, and then these massive columns, and then this massive piece on the top
Or
here.
it's any
Send me your
courthouse or
pictures of
city
these.
hall in Madison,
So that's
Georgia,
exactly the
or
point.
Can I
Does
see
it
that?
fit on the corner?
Madison building?
So I'm gonna kind of change gears a little bit. I think first of all,
that's downtown.
Bob and Robin, I would like to see what is correct. Is it 20.3 spaces required or 47 spaces required? Because that's what these documents show us. That may change the size of that building or the parking that goes in there, which would help address some of the comments we had talked about. The other thing is too, is I'm going to make some comments on when you come back, obviously I don't believe this is just a courtesy review, but we do want to see labels, diagrams, more of that stuff in order to help us kind of better visualize it, right? The height of it doesn't bother me. And the style of it doesn't bother me. I like it. This is a good looking building. For me, it looks too grand and you got to but to me, like the porches on there are kind of like useless space. And so I think that we're all kind of saying, hey, look, these porches just make the mass so big. To me, from as if I was an owner, I'd be like, okay, great. Well, if I can knock off $1 million off this by reducing those porches or taking them down to like a single level or something to reduce that size, I would personally like to see the round columns on all four sides. And then I think that would shrink it a little bit too. But to give you criticism as far as when this comes back is we would love to see some labels, sample materials and stuff like that. These renderings are great, but I do want to see more of calling out materials and like the creeping fig and stuff like that too, which I think would help us better visualize it and maybe soften it a little bit more than what we're looking at, which appears to us kind of like a federal building, right?
Since it's getting late, Bob, would you summarize and try to consolidate it into what you mostly think, because you're the most trained, educated one in the room. So other than Tracy, excuse me, other than Tracy.
No, you got it right.
So-
I will get together with Tracy Wood, and we will take all your comments. We'll watch the video again, I'm sure. We'll capture everything, and I'll sit with Tracy, and we'll try to incorporate the ideas. I really like the cross-section of the board. I mean, I think everybody here has really great input, really critical input, and it's really nice to see that kind of thing. I will tell the board that we, from a permitting standpoint, we won't allow shell space unless he has parking for it. So you can't build shell space and then say, well, I don't have parking, but I'm just going to leave 3,000 square feet of shell. So I wasn't sure exactly what you were doing there, but if it's shell space, you know, whether he finishes or not, he'd have to show the parking for it and the density. We would treat that as, you know, just future space, right? Because somebody would come in later to do that. So I'm going to have to double check that with the architect. But in summary, I really think we're looking at a couple of things. One is you brought good points about materials, colors, because I think that does really make an impact. Commissioner Warwick, you brought up great points about the proportion and mass of those decks and projections. I'm glad you said you like the round columns, because you know, it's right now we have round and square, so we can concentrate on that. And what the chairman was saying about heights of the porches, I think are important too, right? Because they're all 2-story and they're projecting out and they're on all 4 sides. So let's look at those proportion masses, because I think the core square, it's really just square building. Yeah. And it's a 2-story building, and I really don't think that the building in and of itself is overly massive. I really think that works. I think it's all these external apertures that we sort of
Porches, yeah.
put onto the building that I think are just throwing people off, and they do read, the word was institutional or financial, and they do have that look to it. So I think we could look at softening those up and still keep the interior floor plates and the way it's laid out and the way the parking circulation is working and things. I don't think we need to touch it. So I just think it's a tweak to the outside of the facade.
And also talk to your owner about cost and what he values a lot. I'm getting ready to build my own 3-story over here in Alpharetta, and the cost is enormous, and it's just a cost an owner has. Yes. And so if we could get closer to Milton, closer to what everybody said, and then save him a whole lot of money, then we all win.
Yep.
Which is where we want to be. Very much want him to be here. Great business, great guy. And we want this corner built out and finished. We want to finish everything as fast as we can.
I'm going to make one more comment. You guys have been talking. I couldn't get my 2 cents in. Like, jeez. I don't know.
Because you're so polite.
Tracy, I think you do a great job around here. I was happy to see your stamp on it when I first opened the packet, and then you always do amazing work. I agree with everybody. And I think that the black and white rendering that you pulled up on the screen looked a lot better than this for some reason. I think it's just because you could tell a little bit more.
Presentation's everything.
It
We
is,
hadn't done
yeah.
a real presentation for you yet. so-
Right. Well, if you pull that back up, there's even details in that really do look cool.
Yeah,
more-
that's a little older now than what we've.
it was refreshed.
You could tell it was brick. For
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's accents in it. The building just looked a heck of a lot better. Did you create this, Tracy?
Yes.
This
That's
was
You built
what
these?
Charlie just gave us. You did this.
No, that was an earlier scheme before Reliant bought the property. We did that last year.
I don't know if this is going to be a comment that helps, but on this corner is really a gateway where a lot of our traffic moves into our city, and it's sort of that first punch in the face of what they're about to expect. So whether it's a government building or it's something antebellum, or if it's a refreshed old, what did you call it? Merchant building that's been updated. It's sophisticated with the glass. I love this
You
glass.
like the glass?
The glass
That's
is
not too
amazing.
modern?
The glass reflects the monument in the middle of our monument coming into the city. Maybe not, but I get my comment. And it reflects our our beloved library next door. So I'm not saying you have to have a big sheen of glass to do that, but you're sort of looking at like a couple pivotal monuments that we've really admired for a long time in Milton. So I think that's cool.
Sorry, I was jumping in because the wall of glass.
That's a totally different direction.
It just doesn't meet code.
It may not, but it's super cool. Like something do that is that's what this type of location, something super cool instead of Doc Brown about to ride his, down the clock tower. This doesn't fit. So, but anyhow.
I hear that.
All right, so we're going to close this portion of our meeting and move on. Great input from everybody. I'm comfortable that you and Bob are going to get together two great talents, and we're going to be really excited about what we see.
Thank you very much for your comments.
All right, I think we have one bit of old or new business. Don't be on the.
Yes, old business, update on the.
So for, you all are probably already know, but the council unanimously passed the moratorium for our district. As we move forward with writing it and Bob preparing it and creating the vision we all have for this section of Milton, which really ties into the Cotton Gin to Mayfield, to Milton's restaurant, to the three houses we have. Our developer that owns 6 or 7 of those parcels is really working with us and really has come around to where we are and what we want to get done. And it was very positive with him. We've had very positive response from the majority of owners. Wasn't able to get with the Cotton Gin and Milton's, but I know they're pretty set. So that's where we were. Very positive. We're in a 6-month moratorium. We think that's real positive. We did take one parcel out at the request of the developer. As you go down Charlotte toward the stop sign, or you go down Mid-Broadwell, it's a triangle. 14 and 15 were in, and the corner piece was out. Bob and I both see that as for sale townhomes. And the developer said, can I take 14 out and go ahead and do $3 million townhomes? And we've allowed that to happen. And Bob will work with him on putting the 3 townhomes there. We see 15 going there. The man's 60, 70 years old. He wants to live 5 more years there. And then he's all for bringing it into, he was all for coming in the district and seeing townhomes there, more walkable into town. And then the corner point where we meet Alpharetta would be residential too. And again, put more housing, much like Alpharetta, in our downtown. So we're real excited that we're doing the moratorium and that we're designing this district.
I just want to make one correction, just for the record. It's the developer is proposing 3 single-family detached homes. I know you referred to them as townhomes, so I'm sorry.
When they're 10 feet apart, in my mind, they're townhomes.
Okay.
I'm used to half-acre lots. I'm a half-acre lot.
They're not
lot.
attached. We were trying to make sure that they were detached, and they are. So.
Thank you for correcting me. They are detached. We love that.
But they're going to look pretty much like the detached product over here at Taylor Morrison, correct? Because once you
Well, we
condense that
haven't
down,
really gone through their architecture. What they gave us is not approved.
I'm saying as far as the width of those, because it's not.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Similar to
They'll
that.
be a wide house. They'll be
Which
narrow.
Yeah, like
pieces are
40
these
foot
again?
lots.
If you
You
think,
just gave your piece.
yeah, I brought it
Proposals
to have
work.
for our discussion, but I wanted them to leave with it. If you look at your map, it's 14. And so you're going down Broadwell and you pass a Flax house. It's the next piece that has a rental house on it.
That little ranch house.
After past the Flax house, I got it.
Yeah, on their side of the street.
Yeah.
And they're happy with this too.
Room Flax is that next piece.
Uh-huh.
Townhouse is right there.
T-room Flax, and then that piece in 3 detached. And he could have put 8, 10, or 12 crammed in there. So Bob and I were very happy to negotiate that the day of the hearing with him and his lawyer to get the 3 detached houses, which starts setting the tone for the rest.
And he proposed them as a rear-loaded product.
As a what?
A rear load.
Rear-loaded product, which means the driveway would come around the back and the garages would be in the back.
Come in there, rear load, have them all face the street.
It's
on that
really a
whole corner.
great little plan.
That's cool.
And,
You guys want to broker that deal?
and he wanted it out so he could get going with something since he now owns all this millions of dollars of property. And he was going into a moratorium. It gave him a chance to get 3 things going. But for Bob and I, as we discussed it, and council was very involved in this discussion, that set the tone to wrap all the way around the corner up to 15, which backs up to the library. Track 15 backs up to the library.
Okay.
So we really have come a long way, and from a very worrisome place a year ago, 2 years ago, when we turned down the demolition permit on the first house.
Is that country store historic? The old country store, the bike shop?
Yes.
Well,
Yes, it's historic.
yeah, I mean, legally, nothing is registered as historic, but it's.
Is it historically beautiful?
it's
Maybe not,
historically-
but it is historical
It's
because we also
significant.
have a very detailed report from the Milton Historical Society, and they have documented its age, and it was part of the cotton gin in the 1920s, and it was a storage building for the cotton gin, as the carpet store was. So
There's
now-
a lot of history there.
there's a big history.
A lot of
But,
history there.
but as we work on this, and there are people that my phone will blow up when I say this. There's an idea that Bob has had for years, and this developer would like maybe to move that intersection and soften that intersection there at the Broadwell building and tear down the bike shop and bring it around and loop it on over to Davenport's property. And it's a great idea. Bob had it on a plan 10 or 15 years ago. The intersection's terrible. It's a cut-through street. And now we'd have a more walkable street. That's the developer's idea. Bob already had thought of it. I did not want a historical district because that puts too many chains, handcuffs on what Bob is going to do and what we want to see in the district. So there could be one house get torn down. There could be the bike shop get torn down. I, for one, even in the district, the building at Milton's that is sitting there was a third building of the cotton gin. That's the accounting office for the cotton gin. That's now the carpet store. With Milton's, I've wondered why they don't try to buy that to put a venue right there and continue to come to the corner and get rid of historical, but less architecturally important than maybe we would think. So the district lets the city wrap its arms around 22 parcels, work on a road, work on more sidewalks, work on more working with the developer and the other owners to ensure that we're going to get what we want. Bob, you agree with all that or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you say that it's ideally it would be as one developer came in with all parcels and then worked with the city to essentially design something that works for everyone? Is that kind of what you are?
Well, we got one developer now. who
Parcels
has-
are kind of, they own a majority of those, but that's the idea is that developer willing or possibly wanting a little bit more and then have flexibility from the city, but then also can help the city design something to make that essentially the Mayfield
We
district.
want to do that. And then as I worked on this for 2 years, we've got owners that want to do something right now, 5 years, Flax, or maybe 10 or 15. Maybe they want another Milton's restaurant there. They've got a really beautiful house and lawns. And then the Davenports have a great idea to save their barn, tear down one thing, build some more buildings on their 2 acres. But there may be 10 years from now. The district and the overlay will let us tie all this together so it can unfold as the owners choose to develop. And we don't let one developer, and we really, in the end, we can help him accomplish his goals sooner, because with the district, The Davenports have now said, yeah, you want to bring that road on through, we're open to making that happen now. And rather than make you wait 10 years. So now anything I say, they may change their mind. As we do this 6-month design period, things could change. But we have the primary owner, the developer, the Davenports, the Flax, all pretty aligned on working together for the betterment of the owners and the city.
Good.
So that's where we ended up, and we're now in the moratorium. And of course, you'll see all this as it starts to unfold, and we'll ring in on the district and all that.
What do we need to be thinking about, Charlie, as we go through this? Like, where do you need our help or support? What do we need to be thinking about? Anything?
In the district?
Just to help you, yeah.
Just you all thinking about Milton, and I got an outpouring, a unanimous response, but from the Flax who have lived here their whole lives, from Juliet Johnson, who's lived here her whole life. Everybody wants to see Milton stay Milton. And again, that's my issue with this big, massive building, in my opinion. Milton is a brand and a unique place because it's sat here with no sewer for so many years, developing slowly. That was the blessing it had that the city fathers, when they formed the city, did. And that is the input I get from all the council members and from a lot of residents that we've spent time talking to. So as you're doing it, you're a resident, you're a realtor. Think about what you think and what kind of buildings you think we should have. I, for one, would like to see more office buildings and more office daytime workers in the district than so much retail or apartments above. So, Robin, you got a comment?
Yeah, just, I think we're already set up for things. It's just, it's the market that's done so much of retail and restaurants. So hopefully we'll have more people like the applicant tonight to come in with full offices. So, I believe it's the market that's pushing it, and that we do want to have those offices. And there are a lot of people out there that have their home offices and they're looking to expand and get, their wives are, kicking them out of the house and say, go find somewhere.
Robin.
So hopefully we can work on that
I think it's
too.
good for business. Absolutely. If you can get more foot traffic and more lunch traffic, and these people aren't so dependent on people just going out at night, absolutely.
It really works. And we see a lot going on in Alpharetta with small owners in these 2- and 3-story buildings. There's probably been 5 3-story office buildings are being built. Tracy's doing a couple of them. Joe Lockwood's building a couple of them. And we see a lot more owner users with 5, 10, 15,000 feet wanting to own their own building. And we need to get some of that business, I think, in downtown Milton. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you for all your time tonight.
Aye.
Thank you.